Well, as you can see, I've got 3 BOLDR boxes in front of me, and we're going to be taking a look at some BOLDR Odyssey watches today, which are pretty large watches. They're 45.5 millimeter diameter, excluding the crown. The lug to lug length is 52 millimeter, and I'm wearing one now so I can explain about how that works for people with different wrist sizes. That's something to keep in mind. In fact, let's just get this out of the way. So the ones we're going to be reviewing are actually new ones that have just arrived. Literally yesterday I received this one for the first time, which is a BOLDR Odyssey Metal Blue, which is a stainless steel version with a custom stainless steel bracelet with a diver's extension, which is a really nice feature. And actually super impressed with the bracelet. So we'll get into that. And its companion piece here arrived today, just literally a few hours ago. And this is the BOLDR Odyssey Metal Red. So this one has a red dial rather than a blue dial. But the big difference is also the case and the bracelet are black colored, and the finishing on those DLC, diamond-like carbon. So just like sapphire glass is kind of, it needs something like a diamond to scratch it. Diamond-like carbon is the absolutely best standard finish you can get on a watch. Often watches will come with some other kind of IP plating finish, or you might see PVD, which is actually a fairly scratch resistant finish as well. But the best one of the 3 is DLC, so that's really nice to get that, and it also has the diver's extension too. So we're going to be looking at, briefly touching on a couple of other watches in the series so you know as well. And one of the reasons is that the case is different on these 2 new ones, so I want to go over that. And then in here I have this is also new this year as well. I've had these for a few weeks now. This is a BOLDR Odyssey bronze Meteo-Gray, which is basically a gray-colored meteorite. And I'm wearing an older model right now, and they're all the same size case, same shape case. So let's just get this out of the way. We'll do the sizing explanation as well. So this one is a BOLDR Odyssey bronze Meteo-Black, which has a black meteorite, which is really nice. Sometimes it's kind of graphite colored, very reflective, depending on the light. You can see the, I probably mispronounced this, the Wittgenstein lines, the kind of striations, the patterns in the meteorite core. So it's a really nice finish. This one is older. It's my own personal one. And so this is a CuSn8 bronze, which is the best bronze, marine grade bronze you can get. It patinas really nicely, and you can see this is becoming a nice rich brown color. It was originally kind of a shiny gold-like color when new, and these will get a patina over time. And the straps on the bronzes are all Horween leather straps, which is the best US tannery for leather. And these also age and patina really nicely. So if I show you a new strap, it'll look completely different to this. So the fact that the straps can patina and age, and the case does as well, makes for a really nice combination. So getting back to the size, as I said, this is 45.5 millimeter diameter. The wrist size I have, not that I can change my wrist size. My wrist size is 7.5 inches, which is 19 centimeters. That's exactly average for a man. So I'm right in the middle, smack in the middle. And this fits really nicely. My wife says, in terms of looking at watches, when I wear them, this one looks like it looks right on my wrist more than some of the other ones that I have, but might be a little bit too small, or even some humongous pieces that I have. So basically what I'm saying is this watch works really well on a medium-sized wrist, probably 7 inches or higher. I'm 7.5 inches. I wouldn't go under 7 inches. So if you have a small wrist, probably this one's not for you. Alternatively, if you have a large wrist, then it's really nice to have a larger diver compared to some of the other watches that tend to be 40 millimeters or 42 millimeters. So it's a really nice size. It will cover medium to large men's wrists. It needs to be large because it's a chunky tour watch. That's the whole theme and the aesthetic behind it. This one here is not a Swiss movement. The other 3 are Swiss movements. So this one's a Seiko NH35A, which is a very popular movement for dive watches. They're all 500 meter dive watches. And the other 3 are Swiss Solita SW200-1s, which are basically a really reliable movement that's quite popular with Microbrand's, a Swiss automatic movement. And I'll give you the specs on that now before we get stuck in. The movement has 26 joules, and it hacks. In fact, they all hack. They all hand wind, and the power reserve on the Solita is 38 hours. So let's get into the case, and then we'll get into the watches. So the first thing I wanted to point out, all of the bronze watches come in this dive style case. Let me just move these other ones out of the way for a second. It kind of looks like a mini suitcase. It's got I don't know what some of the features are on this, to be honest, but it's a hard shell with a soft foam interior, or a harder foam than a spongy one. But your watch is extremely well protected. It's got two kind of clasps that lock it into place, easy to carry. They stack very nicely if you have more than one watch. So these are really nice, and they've been really popular, and you tend to get secondary straps in there as well. So if I open this up, you'll have things such as the instruction booklet from BOLDR explaining how to use your watch, the warranty card. I won't turn over to the other side, but it will have the serial number printed. And on these bronze watches, you get the serial number on the case underneath one of the strap ends. And as you can see, these bronze watches come with two straps. They come with the whole wheel leather strap, which when new looks like that compared to like this. This one's not been aged yet. You can see the bronze is pretty shiny compared to my one-year-old watch here. And then it also comes with a nice rubber dive strap. So you can obviously, having a dive watch without a dive strap would be pretty stupid. So it's nice that they include the dive strap as well, and the extra buckles. You don't have to keep changing buckles when you change straps, which is an issue I have with some other watches from other microbrands from Singapore. So we're not going to get into this watch too much. I just wanted to point out, the case differences, and that there are other styles. We're really going to be focusing on the metal watches, the blue and the red here. So I just move this to one side, and we'll get stuck into these. Now, it might seem a little bit pretentious. I'm going to be donning gloves here, and there's a reason for that. Which is actually two reasons. First one is because these are metal bracelets, you tend to get fingerprints all over them, and it's a pain in the butt to clean that afterwards, or continuously have to be cleaning it. You don't want to see fingerprints during a review. And the other reason is just in case one of these watches goes to a customer or something, I just am now in the habit, a watch that if it's my own, I don't necessarily need to wear gloves on, but a watch that might not be my own, maybe we might sell one on or something. Basically, I want to make sure that I'm trying to handle that as little as possible. I'm just taking the protective covers off of these really quickly. So these watches here, you'll definitely mention selling them. I should really give you a disclosure here. So as well as running the Kickstarter Watches and Horology Microbrands group on Facebook, a bit of a mouthful, but a fun place, I promise. I also run the Microbrand Store, which is a store selling, strange enough, microbrand watches, of which BOLDR is one of our most popular brands that we carry. So that's why I get these watches into review. But unlike perhaps some other stores or other reviewers who have a vested interest, I'm going to tell you what I don't like about these watches as well as what I do. There is one niggle on this one here, which I'll get into. For me, it's not a showstopper, and I obviously love the watch. I also never stock it in the store to start with. So I'll explain negatives as well as positives. I think the positives far outweigh the negatives. Else we just wouldn't be carrying it, simply put. So let's get stuck in with this one first, and we'll get them both out so you can look at them. And in the box also, worth mentioning, just like in the kind of more suitcase style box, you have the warranty card, instruction booklet, and a few other bits and bobs that BOLDR provide you with. These cases, that might look like it's foam, but it's actually a hard plastic. Very stiff, and there's no watch cushion inside. The watch just sits loose on the top here and sits like this. And we've had no issues with it. I'm kind of surprised not to get a cushion inside, but that's a new style for me, one I've not encountered before. So new boxes. So if you're expecting the old ones, good that you're aware that you're going to have this style of box as well, and they stack pretty nicely as well. So looking at these watches, these are the only two in the series, the Odyssey series, that come with bracelets. And if you are going to have a bracelet, getting the stock one rather than an aftermarket one would be pretty important here. And the reason for that is, I mean, just look at some of the advantages. You look at the lug-ends here, how well that fits to the case. It's perfectly sized. If you get an aftermarket case, you're going to have a gap at the top because you're just going to have straight end links. Based upon the shape of these lug ends, it's a pretty square, chunky design. So you really need to get the stock one that BOLDR provide with these watches. And as you can see, they're also deliciously chunky watches that really suit the vibe of the watch. And we'll get into the diver's extension first of all, because I want to explain what that is for people who might not be aware. So on the back of the watch, it's a really nice milled clasp. It's a signed clasp as well, really nicely done. You'll see there's two sets of buttons rather than just the one you'd normally get to open the watch. The largest set, which right now is on the right, I'll turn it around this way, now it's on the left, will actually open the clasp so you can put it on. And the second set is the diver's extension. And that is actually, if you can get a watch with a diver's extension, it's just like night and day, really. It makes a huge difference. It's not just a nice to have feature. It's a feature that probably anybody who owns a watch that does have a diver's extension, they'll tell you it doesn't matter, even if you're not going diving with it. As a desk diver, it has many advantages over watches that don't. So the fact that BOLDR are doing this is really cool. There are a couple of other microbrands that do it on some of their watches. Zelos do, for example. But most microbrands don't. It's an added cost. You're normally going to get this in mainstream watches. So to see this on a microbrand watch is a really nice thing to have. So let's look at the clasp first of all. It's a locking clasp that requires you to press the button on both sides. So the advantage to that compared to, like, say, maybe a Rolex kind of a fold-over safety clasp, it's a one step to unlock it and open it. Literally just press in both sides. It's pretty safe and secure. If I was to just press one side, it's not going to open. You need to get both. So you don't need that diver's safety fold over because you'd have to be compressing both sides to open this. Never had an issue with a watch that has this style, and I actually prefer it. It's one step to open versus two. So that's a plus as well for me. The other plus, the big one, of course, is the diver's extension. And the way that works, if you didn't have a diver's extension, you'd normally have to use a spring bar tool or something to remove some pins and move them along to a different position to make minor adjustments to the watch size. Obviously, you take some of these links out to get it roughly sized to your wrist, but you know, in winter you tend to have a smaller wrist compared to the summer, believe it or not. Or if you're sweaty and sitting at a desk and this is on your wrist, you might want to wear it a little bit looser. If you're exercising, you might want to tighten up. If you're flying, you certainly want to wear it a little looser. So it's inconvenient to have to kind of use a tool and poke in there to make those changes. You know, Rolex, I mentioned them earlier, they have something called a glide lock system, but you have to take the watch off your wrist to make the change, and it's a little bit of an extra step in my opinion. But these diver's extensions are just awesome. You literally press in the two buttons and you can pull this out to change the size of the watch while it's still on your wrist, which means you can just adjust it to feel comfortable without wondering if that's the right position or not. You don't have to pull out to that full length. There's different stop positions. It is a ratcheting clasp. So you see that's the first one. It's the equivalent to a micro link. That's the second one. There's probably like 4 in there. That's the third one. That's the fourth one. So there's 4 stop positions on this. So it's a simple idea, but it's a super cool idea because you can change this watch on the fly. You're wearing it loose, it's comfortable, and then you're going out and you're exercising and you forgot to tighten it up. You literally just press the button in and push it in a little bit further. What I would do is, if you're buying a watch with a bracelet like this, I would have it tight. Take the links out so that it's tight on your wrist, and then use the diver's extension to make it looser. Sorry, wrong end there, this end here. So the thing about the diver's extension, it's not really something that is only useful for divers. The theory behind this is that you have the extension so you can make the watch a little bit bigger over a wetsuit. But in practice, us desk divers, I don't really go diving. In fact, I've never been diving. really find this extra appealing. It's a huge plus for anybody who wears this, even over a comfortable leather strap like this. One position might be a little too tight, one might be a little too loose. This gives you some micro adjustments, no tools required, and you don't even have to take it off. That's awesome. So that is the biggest plus with this bracelet, and it was really worth getting into. I'm going to go over the dial here in case you haven't noticed, but just to explain about this a little bit. So this is a fume dial, which is a gradiated dial. Basically, it starts a dark midnight blue on the outside and gets to a lighter blue on the inside. There's actually two colors there, and they kind of merge about halfway. You can possibly see this on the camera. It shows really well in daylight. So I'm indoors here, so it might be a little bit difficult, but I am picking this up somewhat. So this dial is textured. To me, it's got a lot of interest. It kind of reminds me maybe the Milky Way in the night sky, something like that. The loom on all of these watches is Swiss Super Luminova. It's an awesome loom, really well done. These are very thickly painted indices and hands. And I'm going to put up a picture here, and the story behind this picture, totally undoctored apart from being resized to fit on the screen. And I was out yesterday taking some photographs with this watch, and it was like 6 p.m., something like that. So it was getting towards dusk, not quite dusk, but it was certainly a little bit darker. Very overcast day, it had been raining earlier. And literally I was outside for no more than 5 minutes, snapped a few pictures, came back in. And then as I came in the entry hall, I noticed the lights weren't on. It was a little bit dim inside. This was glowing away, so I just snapped a picture. So that's just literally an off-the-cuff shot, so you can see how well these watches pick up on their loom. They're all equally as good. They all have the same style, and they all have of case. They all have the same features. Every single one has a helium escape valve. Some will have a nice pressed case back, a screw-down case back, with a decorative image, which does vary from design to design. Obviously a screw-down crown as well, that being 500 meters water resistant. A very nice sapphire glass. I believe it's double domed, but it certainly has a very slight dome to it, which is nice. And 120 click unidirectional bezels. All the features you'd expect in a dive watch, pretty much. A very robust dive watch at that. Got a little bit of heft to it, which I like as well. The bezel, I'm wearing gloves here, so my fingers may slip. Not the best of gloves to wear for playing with the bezel, but it's not tight, it's not loose. They got this exactly right. But this is, we're probably getting onto my only niggle with this watch. Remember I said I'd point out negatives as well as positives. At nighttime, you can see extremely easily where the loom is on the bezel, so you can see, if you're using it as a timer, you can see when you're looking at this dead on and it's bright outside, all of these kind of raised markers on the bezel all look the same. They all look white, so it's really hard to see without paying great attention which one actually is the bezel pip, which is right now at the 9 o'clock position. When you have it at an angle from the side, you can clearly see, oh, that's the only one that's white. But on looking from the front, they all kind of look white here. So to me, it's a slight design flaw. Not an issue with any other watches in the series. On this one on my wrist, it's very clearly a different color. On the black one in particular, it's the only one that's called out in white and the rest are black. I would have liked to have seen somehow maybe these have a stainless finish rather than, it looks like it's almost like an off-white paint on them or something. I mean, it looks nice, but functional wise, this is my only niggle with the watch. It's a little bit hard to see the position of the crown, so not the crown, position of the bezel during daylight, in bright light, full on. But of course, you're looking at your wrist, you can easily look at it from the side to check. So it's not a showstopper for me, and it's something that you can get used to looking at a little bit differently rather than full on, but it's certainly a niggle, and I want to share all the pros and cons with customers, because basically when I'm trying to help somebody get a watch in the store, I'm not actually trying to sell you the watch, I'm trying to sell you a relationship. I would rather have a happy customer, an informed customer who gets what they want and isn't unhappy with the watch, because I know they'll come back and buy another one. It's pretty simple economics for me, and it means that I'm trying to be as informative as I can and give you all the pros and cons that I can think of when reviewing these watches. So this one is the BOLDR Odyssey Metal Blue, really nice watch. If you're looking for a comparable in a slightly different style, maybe the same size, another one you can look at is the Zelos Great White, which also has a very nice custom bracelet and a diver's extension. So that's certainly worth looking at, and also has the same Swiss movement that this one does. And probably the biggest difference is that it has a ceramic bezel rather than a bezel in the same color as the case and the bracelet. But I actually kind of like this style a little bit more because, I mean, this looks like a lot of metal. Metal is a good name for this. It's really picks up on the stainless steel aesthetic really quite well. So I definitely like this watch a lot. I actually wouldn't mind keeping one of these. I say that a lot of the reviews that I do, but to be honest, I'm picking the watches and I tend to pick ones that I like. But really, it's a watch that has a lot of wrist presence, and I kind of like that. It's not pretentious, it's not gaudy. It's definitely a tall watch, and it looks like a tall watch, but it's a super chunky bracelet. They've done such a good job on this. One of the nicest bracelets I've seen coming from a Microbrand. So can't praise this enough. Super happy with it. The other one that we have, obviously it's almost the same. It also, except for the colors. So I mentioned the diamond-like carbon on this. It's got the same decoration, same diver's extension, same milled clasp. They made it black all the way through, which is nice. The case back is always going to be a screw down case back, so that isn't black, but absolutely everything else metal wise on the watches, even the cover on the helium escape valve here is as well. So this is also a fume dial. It starts kind of a darker red and then kind of moves to a lighter bolder, dare I say, red as well. But this one, the Loom pip, you can pick up day or night. Really not an issue. It's the only part of the bezel that's white. And again, it works super well. It's a good watch to have if you like to go black. Sometimes I like black watches, but I don't go for them because they're not diamond-like carbon. Here you don't have that issue. Diamond-like carbon would be pretty scratch resistant compared to almost all the other options out there. So if you're going to go for one, always make sure that's a colored case, colored stainless steel. Always try and make sure, especially in a dive watch that gets banged around, that you're going for diamond-like carbon finishing. Definitely a good feature to have. And on both of these dials, you can see they've actually made the date window at 6 o'clock, which is the same on all of the watches in the series. But this earlier one, you can see the date window here has got a white background. Doesn't really go well with a black dial. Here they've made it a dark background with white text. So a lot of thoughts have gone into these watches to make them what they are. Definitely, I love the series. Probably wouldn't go for this one myself. My style's tending more towards the stainless. Just because, I don't know, but I do like black watches as well, but I probably go for a black stealth watch personally, and that's just my personal taste. Definitely, a lot of people have been admiring this, and we've already started selling them, so they seem to be popular with a lot of folks. This will be my pick, but right now I'm wearing my Meteo-Black, so question is if I can persuade my wife, maybe have another one. We will see. So if you have any questions, let me know, put them in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to address them. Hope this was useful. Thanks a lot. Take care.